My father insisted that I attend my golden brother's wedding, threatening to cut off my tuition if I refused. But their shock was immeasurable when I revealed that I was already earning more than him. Growing up, my father always treated me like the child who barely mattered in the family. He was completely obsessed with my brother, showering him with admiration. It didn't even matter to him when I got accepted into a prestigious university. Instead, he dismissed it outright. "You're going to the local college, we don't want your brother feeling jealous." So I played along. I pretended everything was fine, smiled, and told him, "All right, Dad, I'll do as you say. But on one condition, I get to stay in the dorms." He agreed, not realizing I had just pulled off the biggest deception of my life. In reality, I never set foot in that local college. Instead, I attended the elite institution on a scholarship he knew nothing about. And when he finds out, oh, he's going to explode. Now, imagine this, the same people who ignored your existence for years suddenly demand you to show up and act like part of the family for a single day. That would be tough, right? But with my family, that's just how it is. Let me take you to the beginning. My name is Jono, and if you haven't realized it yet, my family is a mess. Actually, calling it a family might be a stretch. What do you call the people who brought you into the world only to discard you when they found a better version? Is that even a family? If my parents had treated both their children equally, maybe I would have had a chance at a normal childhood. But no, my parents were completely biased, and I was nothing more than background noise for them. All of this because my brother, Romain, was born healthier than me. Romain was one of those babies that immediately captivated everyone. He was cute, chubby, and full of life, while I was the small, unimpressive kid no one cared to hold. But should something as superficial as appearance make parents treat their children differently? You'd think not, right? Well, Rick and Marinu, my so-called parents, thought otherwise. Within a month of Romain's birth, he became their golden child, the one everyone adored. It's not like he was exceptional. He was just the more visually appealing one, the protagonist, while I was nothing more than a background character. And that's exactly how my childhood played out. My parents ignored me, only ensuring my basic survival while my brother basked in all the attention. Naturally, this turned him into an egotistical brat. Romain was spoiled rotten, growing up thinking the world revolved around him. As for me, I was the quiet, introverted kid who had to endure his torment. Can you imagine being bullied by your own younger brother? That was my reality. Romain made it his mission to make my life miserable, whether it was throwing tantrums that ruined my plans or snatching things I loved just to spite me. As bad as that was, the real problem wasn't just Romain, it was my parents who enabled him. They let him get away with everything, feeding his sense of entitlement. While he was drowning in gifts, praise, and affection, I barely got scraps. My birthdays were mere formalities, my achievements overlooked, and my presence in the household reduced to that of an afterthought. I remember this one time in 3rd grade, I got straight A's on my report card. I was ecstatic, thinking maybe I'd get some recognition. But when I showed my mother, she barely glanced at it and muttered, "That's nice," before gushing over a sloppy dog drawing Romain had made. Guess which one made it onto the fridge? Yeah, Romain's ugly doodle got the spotlight while my report card ended up in the junk drawer. That's how it always was. I was like the discarded report card while my brother was celebrated for the most trivial things. And it wasn't just about the small stuff. Romain had the final say on everything, where we went for vacations, what we ate for dinner, even what we watched on TV. Anytime I voiced a preference, it was shot down. And of course, Romain never missed an opportunity to rub it in. He was the prince of the household, and I was nothing more than his servant. So, you can probably understand why I wanted to get away from that place as soon as I could. Finally, I had my escape plan. I got a scholarship to one of the most prestigious universities in the world. This wasn't just any college, it was a place that practically guaranteed a successful future. A full-ride scholarship to an institution like that? It was a dream come true. But there was one catch: it was several states away. And just like every other major decision in my life, my parents refused to let me have it. Do you want to know why? Of course, it was because of Romain. My parents actually had the audacity to tell me I should attend a local college instead. Their reasoning? It offers better opportunities, they said. But the real reason? They didn't want Romain to feel bad about himself. Because unlike me, Romain wasn't academically gifted. But was that my fault? If he wanted to go to a top-tier school, he should have worked for it, just like I did. But none of that mattered to my parents. They insisted I stay close to home, all for Romain's sake. Can you see how absurd this entire situation was? Deep down, I couldn't shake the feeling that my parents were deliberately trying to keep me from surpassing Romain. It was as if they acknowledged my potential but chose to ignore it because genuinely supporting me might somehow threaten Romaine's status as their golden child. Why else would they go to such lengths to keep me at a local college while Romaine, who lacked even a fraction of my ambition, received their full and unwavering support? It was as if they had already written the script and my success was never meant to be part of it. But did I let that nonsense dictate my future? Absolutely not. I had already made more than enough sacrifices to accommodate my family's ridiculous favoritism. But this time I was done playing along. I told my parents I would agree to attend the local college, but only on the condition that I could live in the dorms. They agreed, a little too enthusiastically, believing they had finally convinced me to stay close to home. But were they right? Not even close. I accepted the scholarship and moved to another state, all while my parents remained under the illusion that I was studying at a nearby institution. The best part? The prestigious college I attended had the exact finance program I wanted, and I could complete it in just 2 years instead of the 4 required by the local college. That meant I could graduate even sooner than they had anticipated. And honestly, it was the best decision I ever made. Not only did I escape the toxic environment my parents had created, but I also gained access to a world of opportunities. This school was my ticket to success. In fact, shortly after graduating, I landed a 6-figure job, and I've been with the company for a year now. Things keep getting better. I'm even on the verge of a promotion. I pulled this off entirely on my own. The scholarship covered 80% of my tuition, and I used the money my father unknowingly sent me to cover the rest of my expenses. Now I'm thriving. My father still sends me money, convinced that I'm attending the local college. And have I told him to stop? Not at all. Some might call it wrong, but to me it feels like a small form of retribution for the years of neglect and favoritism. I've had minimal contact with my family. Just a few occasional check-in calls and a couple of holiday visits to keep them from getting suspicious. Other than that, they've left me alone, and I've had a perfect excuse: my studies. Not that they cared much to begin with. After all, they had Romaine to dote on. Truth be told, I was content with this arrangement. Sure, it stung knowing my parents never even noticed I had moved states away. But any lingering sadness was easily overshadowed by the immense relief of not having them breathing down my neck. I won't lie, I did miss the concept of having a family. Not the dysfunctional one I was born into, but the idea of a family that actually loved and supported each other. Even with my success, friends, and financial stability, there was always this lingering void. But until this morning, fixing that part of my life seemed impossible. Today, however, everything changed. My father called me. Romaine was getting married, and my father demanded I come home a few days early to help with the wedding preparations. I was stunned. Was my father actually asking me to come home? I had waited for this moment for so long. And when he told me he wanted the whole family together for Romaine's big day, I felt something I hadn't in years: recognition. It was overwhelming. My parents had never treated me as an equal member of the family before. But then reality set in. These were the same people who had ignored me for years. The same ones who had no idea I lived in another state. Did I really want to walk back into that dynamic, only to be sidelined all over again? So, I found myself in a dilemma, and I want to ask you, what would you do if you were in my position? I craved the idea of family, even if just for one day. But the fear of being let down yet again was paralyzing. Should I go to the wedding just to maintain some semblance of family? Or should I stay away and protect myself from further disappointment? I had 2 days to think it over, and in the end, I made my choice. Some of you may disagree, but I chose not to go. And honestly, it felt like the best decision I could have made. Spoiler alert, my parents haven't changed, and they never will. Let me pick up where I left off. After making my decision, I sent my father a simple text: I won't be able to make it. No long-winded explanations, no apologies. Just the truth. I expected some backlash, but I didn't anticipate the emotional manipulation to start so quickly. Within an hour, my phone was flooded with messages. First, my mother attempted to guilt-trip me. She asked if I really wanted to miss such an important day in Romaine's life. If I wanted to be that brother. She insisted that Romaine would be heartbroken if I wasn't there. Really? Now they wanted to play the "we're family" card? My mother went on about how much it would mean to Romaine if his older brother showed up. But here's the thing, Romaine never cared about any of my milestones. Not one. And yes, you only get one family. But that doesn't mean you have to keep subjecting yourself to their mistreatment. But respect is a two-way street, right? So, I told my mother the same thing: I wasn't coming. When guilt-tripping didn't work, my father switched tactics, trying to play the reasonable parent at first. He started with the usual spiel about how families should stick together during important moments. But when that failed to sway me, he went straight for the threats. He called me up and declared that if I refused to attend Romaine's wedding, they would stop paying my tuition. According to him, they couldn't afford the embarrassment of people gossiping about why one of their sons was absent on such a big day. So, as always, it wasn't really about me. It wasn't even about Romaine. It was about how the family looked in the eyes of others. That was the final straw for me. I mean, how selfish can someone be? Threatening to cut off my education just to force me into a wedding appearance? It was beyond ridiculous, especially since I didn't even need their money. So I told him, go ahead. Stop paying the tuition. I'm not coming to the wedding, and nothing you say will change that. Of course, I hadn't told them yet that I had graduated a year ago, that I had a six-figure job, and that I was living in another state completely independent. I wasn't ready to share that yet, because I knew if they found out, they'd do everything in their power to disrupt my peace. But I knew I'd have to reveal the truth eventually. Predictably, my father lost it. He ranted about how ungrateful I was, how I had always been difficult, and then, in his ultimate move of desperation, he threatened to officially withdraw me from the local college to teach me a lesson, as if that would devastate me. He had no idea how ironic his threat was. Honestly, I couldn't stop laughing. I could have told him right then that I had never attended the local college. But where's the fun in that? So now, I'm just waiting for him to march down there, demanding to have me removed from a school I was never enrolled in. I can only imagine his reaction when he realizes I don't need him or his money at all. And when that moment comes, it's going to be absolutely priceless. Anyway, I'll keep you all updated. Hey, it's Jono again. I know it's only been a day since my last update, but things have taken an even wilder turn. I had a feeling my father would take my refusal seriously, and I was right. Started this morning with a phone call, and let me tell you, he was furious. The man was livid, wasting no time demanding to know where I had been all this time and what I had done with all the money he had been sending for my tuition. It was like watching a toddler throw a tantrum over a toy he never even played with. Only this time, the tantrum came from a grown man who had just discovered that his world wasn't as neatly controlled as he thought. After our last conversation, my father had gone to the local college. Yes, the same one I was attending, to officially withdraw me. He thought pulling me out of school would force me to submit and attend Romaine's wedding. Clearly, he was in for a surprise. When he arrived, he learned that the school had no record of me. He had stormed into the office, demanding to remove a student who had never even been enrolled. I can only imagine the humiliation on his face when he realized his lesson had completely backfired. And now, here he was, demanding to know where I had actually been for the past 3 years and what I had done with all the money he had given me. The sheer absurdity of the situation had me laughing out loud. After he fumed for a while, I finally decided it was time to tell him the truth. I told him that I had actually graduated a year ago on a full scholarship, and that the money he had sent had gone toward living expenses. Then I dropped the real bombshell. I had a 6-figure salary and was earning more than him. The silence on the line was almost comical. Then he asked if I was joking, but he knew deep down that I wasn't. And that's when he completely lost it. He started yelling about how I had betrayed him, how he had done so much for me only to be repaid with deception. Done so much for me? I thought. Was he referring to the years of neglect? The blatant favoritism? The constant disregard for my existence? Then, in one last desperate attempt to regain control, he said that the only way he could ever forgive me was if I attended Romaine's wedding and made sure no one gossiped about our family. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Even after everything, his biggest concern was still his public image. I don't know why he suddenly cares about the family's reputation. He's never seemed bothered by it before. But honestly, it doesn't matter. I told him point blank that I didn't need his forgiveness. I wasn't about to play along in their charade, pretending to be part of a happy family. I had no reason to attend the wedding of the man who had made my childhood miserable. At this point, my father sounded desperate, trying to convince me to come. But I held firm. I told him I was done with their drama, that I wanted nothing more to do with them, and that they could enjoy their golden son's wedding without me. For the first time in my life, I was standing up for myself and it felt incredible. My father was stunned. But I didn't stop there. I had spent my entire childhood silently enduring their neglect. Not anymore. I told him I never wanted to hear from them again. They could go ahead and celebrate Romaine's wedding, but I would be busy enjoying the life they never gave me. And with that I hung up. I don't know what happens next, but for the first time in a long time I feel free. My father attempted to influence me emotionally again. But this time I wouldn't have it. He talked about how I was his son and how I needed to attend my brother's wedding. But I was finished. I simply told him that he only had one son, the one they all seemed to care about, and that they could keep it that way. Without giving him another chance to respond, I gladly cut them off. I ended the call and immediately blocked his number. And that was it. I was officially free from my family's toxic presence. It was a bittersweet feeling because I never imagined it would come to this. But at the same time, I felt a deep sense of relief. At last, I could live my life in peace. And who knows? Maybe one day I'll build my own family, the kind that truly values and supports one another. It's been over a month since I cut off communication with my family. I thought I was finally above all the drama and manipulation, but of course, they couldn't let go so easily. A few days ago, I received an unexpected call from an unknown number. It was my mother, sobbing uncontrollably. Since I had blocked all of their numbers, I was surprised to receive this one. I considered hanging up, but I had a gut feeling that something serious had happened. But no, it was nothing like that. She told me how much she missed me and how she just wanted her son back. She claimed that none of the past arguments mattered anymore and that she simply wanted me to be part of the family again. I was perplexed. Where was this energy before? When I first told them I was cutting them off, they didn't seem to care. But now suddenly my mother wanted to mend our relationship? It felt suspicious. So I told her I'd call her later and hung up. I had a feeling something wasn't right, so I called my aunt, my mother's sister, to see if she had any insight. And what she told me confirmed all my suspicions. Apparently, Romaine's wedding had been a complete disaster. His seemingly perfect fiancée turned out to be a con artist. Before the wedding, she convinced Romaine, my parents, and some other relatives to invest all their savings into a so-called once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. And no surprise, it was all a scam. She took the money and vanished. There was no wedding. But that wasn't even the worst of it. My aunt also revealed that my parents were in even deeper trouble than I had thought. My father had caused a major dispute with an employee and his family, leading to a significant loss for his already struggling business. And then everything clicked. This is why he had been so desperate to get me to attend the wedding. He wanted to save his public image, pretending to have a perfect, loving family. But of course, that plan crumbled. And Romaine's disaster of a wedding only made things worse. Now, my parents were hemorrhaging money. To make matters worse, they had put their house up as collateral for a loan in a last-ditch attempt to save the business. That too had backfired. And now they were on the verge of losing their home. They had no choice but to move into a rundown trailer or a tiny studio apartment, whatever they could afford. And suddenly everything made sense. My mother hadn't called because she genuinely missed me. She called because they were desperate. They knew I was doing well and they wanted to use me as their financial lifeline. But I wasn't playing that game. I refused to let them drag me into their mess. They had never cared about me before, they were too busy putting Romaine first. And the irony? Now they were furious with him, blaming him for everything, the failed wedding, the lost money, their financial ruin. The golden child they had built their lives around had completely destroyed them. And honestly, that realization brought me a twisted sense of satisfaction. They were finally facing the consequences of their actions. Still, I didn't care to get involved. After my mother's call, I blocked her again. I wasn't going to let her manipulate me. But did that stop them? Of course not. My parents were desperate. They refused to accept that they had lost control over me. Eventually, they showed up at my house. Don't ask me how they got my address. I suspect they pressured some old friends of mine for information. But honestly, it didn't matter. What mattered was that they stood on my doorstep preaching about family values and how, as their eldest son, I had a duty to take care of them. I slammed the door in their faces. They begged me to help them, claiming they had spent their last bit of money just to fly out to see me. That was unfortunate for them, but not my problem. I wasn't going to save them. And it didn't end there. A few days later, Romaine himself came to my house, practically in tears. He begged me for help, saying he missed having his big brother in his life. I wasn't sure what big brother he was talking about because all I remembered was him bullying me for years. I warned him to leave. But he kept pleading, telling me that our parents were planning to cut him off because they blamed him for their downfall. Too bad. Romaine had the same fate as our parents. I shut the door in his face, telling him that if any of them showed up again, I'd call the police. Since then, I haven't heard from any of them. And I honestly don't care. I'm done with this toxic family. Completely done. There's a part of me that feels sad that it came to this. Because deep down, I know that void will always exist, the one they created by never truly caring about me. But I refuse to let that sadness drag me back into their toxic cycle. So, thank you all for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so and hit the notification bell to stay updated with more shocking real-life stories happening around you.